Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 67 of the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler, and this is the bout that almost didn't happen. We're barely getting it in under the wire, thanks to our schedules. We've been pretty busy this month, and we apologize for it coming out so late. But rest assured, we will also be doing an October bout, and we don't want to ruin our perfect record this year. So far, we have made every month. We've actually recorded a show. I know there's been a few times in the past where we've actually had to skip a month. But so far this year, knock on wood, we haven't. And joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Mr. Tom Haggis.
Thanks, Mike. I'm a big fan.
Second, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Mr. Gabriel Rowald.
Oh, sorry, I got, premature.
Yeah, premature.
I hate when that happens.
Premature
So
quoting.
ready. What?
Premature quoting. It happens as you get older.
I know. I am a little bit older.
I kind of outgrew that when I turned 15, but all right.
It'll come back.
So what were you going to say, Gabe?
Oh, nothing. I just said light them up.
Nice. All right. So we are doing a couple of documentaries about fans of movies and the movies themselves. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's let the monkey take it over.
Ladies and gentlemen, cosplayers and prop masters, welcome to the main event! Tonight, we have a Tinseltown throwdown as two documentaries race for the clock tower. Who will win and who will get smiled? In the first corner from 2015, directed by Jason Aaron, starring Steven Spielberg, Michael J. Fox, and Robert Zemeckis. Back in Time! In the second corner from 2016, directed by Brendan Mertens, starring Chase Ambrose, William Atherton, and Dan Aykroyd. Ghostheads!
I normally like watching shows, documentaries about films, about the process of making the film. So I was kind of happy to see some of the actual cast and crew talking about the making of, and then sprinkling in, some of the fandom. Now, I'm a big fan of both of these films, of both of the subjects of these films, but I don't know if I could do all this. We'll find out what Tom and Gabe think when we start out with writing.
Yeah, the documentary genre always kind of throws our categories off a little bit because, documentaries aren't in a traditional sense necessarily written. Although in certain ones you could make an argument that they are, but in these instances, I think these are more they went out and they gathered a bunch of footage and then they brought it together at the end. But I think in this category you could look at things like content selection, subject selection, or the people that they're interviewing, that kind of thing, and relate those to kind of the writing process, because I think those things are super important when you're creating a documentary. Are you latching onto an interesting subject, and are you talking to the right people when you do it? And I think both of these were pretty interesting. I'm with you, Mike. I like documentaries about films and filmmaking. I love to see how this stuff is done, and it's always amazing to me. Even now, when I kind of can maybe guess how some of it was done, it's still really just exciting for me to see people doing this and how they get these things done. So it's always nice to get a behind the scenes look at these films. Now, depending on how, I think this category depends a little bit on what we selected these films for, and we selected them because in part they were kind of films about fans of these films, if that makes sense. And in that respect, I think that Ghostheads probably was more true to that idea.
Right.
Because it focused almost exclusively on these super fans of Ghostbusters, whereas Back in Time spent a little bit more time talking about how the film was made and who was involved and the whole the acting choices and those kinds of things, and then somewhere near the end kind of added in some of the fan related material. So because it's so difficult to pick, to talk about writing with a documentary, I feel like that's an important part of making my decision. And I felt like Ghostheads was more true to the goal there, as far as talking about the fans of this film and what the impact this film has had on their lives. And so, yeah, I guess in this category, I feel like maybe Ghostheads has an advantage in that respect.
No.
No?
Sorry, no. I like documentaries about movies too. I love them. I think they're fantastic. But I've decided that I do not enjoy documentaries about fans of movies. I would have been much happier if they had done a 2-hour documentary on like the making of Ghostbusters and the making of Back to the Future, and there was so little of that in there. Like the stuff about Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future, I was on the edge of the couch. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like great. This is some insight, and tell me why the movie is great. Don't tell me why the fans are crazy. And I just, and as far as like the writing goes, I think the problems that I have with both of these is that I don't think there's enough material for a feature-length documentary. I think you could have had a really nice like 20-minute documentary about both of these, but the putt-putt golf course in the guy's backyard, I mean, they spent like 10 minutes on that, and I'm like, does this really, I mean, tell me how they did the lightning effect for the clock tower.
Right.
So, I mean, those are kind of more the documentaries that I enjoy doing, and these were just, I just found both of them just kind of, I was just like, watch them through my fingers by the end, because I was just so excruciating, and I don't know, there's nothing in my life that I find that I'm that obsessive about, that I would, dedicate my life to it. I mean, at a point, Simpsons was like that for me 20 years ago, but nowadays I don't know. Maybe I'm jealous of these people because they have, that they can throw themselves into something like this, but I don't know. I just, as far as the choices they made to do it, I just feel like it was just, they stretched a lot from not much material.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think there were a couple of people in each one that, it actually meant a lot to them. And then the others were just kind of sprinkled in. And I wish they would have spent a little more time on the ones where, it helped that one, the one ghost head, it helped her quit drinking. Like she just latched onto it for some reason. And then
Seems she swapped one addiction for another.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, at least it's a healthier addiction. Some may disagree with that.
Physically healthy.
I've always wanted to do cosplay, but because I am a giant nerd, and since I'm a giant nerd, it's harder for me to find, the outfits or be able to build the stuff myself. And let's face it, this podcast is coming out pretty damn late at the end of September. I don't really have a lot of time to be able to devote to something like that. And I think Tom hit on something where you feel a little jealous that these people can do that. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that they get to do that, or it's a bad thing that I'm not able to do that. It's just the way that the cookie crumbles, if you will. And how do I put this? I love going to cons, and I love looking at all the cosplayers. I like the creativity. Some of them do some really fine work, very detailed, and they put a lot of time into it and love. And are they crazy for it? Maybe, but I'm hosting a podcast about films, so that's kind of my passion, right? But I'm with Tom. I think 30 minutes, maybe 40. And you could have told everything. The miniature golf course really bothered me. The visiting the set of the reboot of the Ghostbusters, because in the back of my head, of the new Ghostbusters, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh God. Like, I haven't seen it. I've just heard word of mouth. I haven't even read anyone's reviews. I've just heard from friends and family that have seen it and just totally trash it. And it's like, God, how do these people feel about that film? Like, are they disappointed? Did it take all the air out of their tires, or are they like, it is what it is, and still move on and go with it?
That would actually be an interesting follow-up to that documentary.
Right.
To see what these super fans thought of the new one. Were they just super excited about it just because it's Ghostbusters, and they're kind of like, they'll just love it no matter what?
Right.
Or are they disappointed? Are they just kind of ignoring it? It isn't kind of like Superman 2 or whatever.
Yes.
We'll just pretend that never happened.
Right.
We'll just go on living.
And, it's with back in time, like, I really enjoyed the whole seeing the behind the scenes stuff and then them talking to fans. Like, it kind of gave a healthy mixture, but at the same time, I was also with Tom where, I want to see how they did more of that. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a guy there with essentially 2 arc rods creating lightning, and then they showed the stagehand or the grip or whoever it was there with leaves, throwing it in front of the wind machine. And I'm like, oh my God, you never really think about it like that. But with Ghostheads, there wasn't a whole lot of behind the scenes footage.
No.
It was just Aykroyd and not Zemeckis.
Ramus.
Talking about it, and you're right, Gabe. Like, when we started out doing the reason we picked these was because it was about the fans of the films. But to me, it came around to which one was more entertaining, and unfortunately, the one that was more entertaining to me was the one that had more of the behind the scenes and was talking with the filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I won't disagree with that. But I guess that my point was from the reason we selected them. I guess it depends on how they marketed back in time as well. Mm-hmm. Was it just a documentary, or was it supposed to be a documentary about fans? Right. Because if that were the case, then I felt like they didn't spend as much time on the fans, good or bad, and they did spend a little more time on behind the scenes stuff. But I agree with you. I personally found the behind the scenes stuff more entertaining.
Right.
the fan stuff was interesting in that, you're like, wow, I can't believe people are this obsessed, you know.
Yeah.
And that these films, the flip side to that though is that these films had such a positive impact on many of their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's pretty incredible that it somehow helped them through hard situations. And when you're making a film, especially one like Ghostbusters or Back to the Future, they're meant to be purely entertainment.
Right.
They're not like trying to address some really deep issue that might help somebody in the future. They're just like, hey, we want to make a fun movie and make a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see how even without that being the goal, it did help people in ways, maybe strange ways, but interesting in its own way nonetheless.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about this category?
No, you kind of said everything that I was thinking about. The way Back to the Future, the Back in Time was able to get a lot more of the behind the scenes movie stuff, and Ghostheads really didn't have any of that. But that's the part that I enjoyed the most, and I never expected more behind the scenes stuff. I think it was kind of a pleasant surprise. But anyway, Back in Time was really like two documentaries.
Yeah,
it was kind of yeah. There was definitely a split. You could almost like say, okay, right here is where they kind of switch gears and
Yeah.
All right. Let's go and vote, Gabe.
Well, based on what I was saying before, where I felt like Ghostheads was kind of more true to the whole concept, I'm going to go with Ghostheads.
All right. Tom?
Back in Time.
And I'm siding with Tom on this one. Sorry, Gabe.
Oh, no problem.
I don't really have any trivia for these, so this might be a quick episode. Yeah.
Well, if we don't have enough material, let's not stretch it out.
Yeah. Nice.
We'll make 2 shows out of it.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of Cinesmac, give us a call. We'll put you on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. You can tell us how we've impacted your lives.
You can dress up like one of us.
Yeah, you can cosplay as Mike.
All right. Let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
So now I got to talk about the people in the documentary. I'm going to say, first of all, I feel like we can talk first about the famous people and then the not famous people. I feel like the famous people that were in Back in Time seem to be enjoying themselves a little bit more.
Yes.
And the people that were in Ghostheads really were more of like, what are we doing? What's this about? And maybe this is more for directing too, is just the way that they were edited together. And, and the famous people in Ghostheads really kind of just like threw out these kind of random stories of interactions with fans, where in Back in Time, I thought it was a little bit more well put together. They kind of actually worked chronologically through conception through Back to the Future 3, which I thought was a lot easier to follow. I will put some marks against Back in Time for not getting Eric Stoltz on camera. I can't blame him for not wanting to participate, but I really, really want to hear from him about what was his thoughts when he was in this movie and he got yanked out of it, and then to see someone else step in and it become what it is today and how beloved it is. And,
There's your documentary, Tom.
He's left being, the cute guy from Some Kind of Wonderful. So, so I mean, in that aspect, I just feel like the people the famous people did a better job at Back in Time. The Ghostheads people, so now we're talking about like the fans, the air quotes, normal people. The fans in Ghosthead were really intriguing.
Yes.
At the beginning, where I was just like, really? Are you really serious that you're really like this? And the people in Back in Time seemed like they had a little bit firmer grasp of reality, and I don't know. It just seemed like I was really intrigued by the Ghostheads, but after a while, I've been just like, why are we still talking about this? I just, it's something where somebody like, hey, you ever meet Mitch? I was like, yeah. He dresses up like Ghostbusters on the weekend? Cool. I mean, that's all I need to know about Mitch. I don't need to know that he wears it when he takes his kid to school.
Right.
That would, I don't think I'd be allowed on my school's property, my kid's school property.
Where
the
to
proton
go?
pack.
Right. Well, it's unlicensed.
Yeah, that's unlicensed.
Yeah.
So I just, and I guess I wish I had the time to put together, restore a DeLorean. Kudos to them for pulling the one off the Universal backlot and cleaning it up and giving it the love that it needs, because it is a pop culture. It does belong in the Smithsonian. But I don't know. Again, I think it keeps going back to why are we still talking about these people? I just got to get that fan obsession.
Well, and I think it suffers from the reality TV syndrome, where producers of a reality TV show will go for the more off or the crazier people, because they know viewers will go in to say, oh, what are they going to do next week? I can't wait to see, because they're morons, And I think Ghostheads, and I'm not saying these people are crazy, and I'm not saying they're morons, but they had great stories, but then they kept going back and they were trying to hammer home those stories, and it's like, no, we know the background, we know it, and now it just got to be where it's a little past obsession, we're talking like putting Dan Aykroyd on a bed and breaking his ankles so he can't leave type of situation. Like, there were a few times I felt a little uncomfortable, and I felt bad for Tom, I think it was the guy from Jersey, when he won the chance to go and see the trailer for the new film before it was released, and it just felt weird when he was meeting up with Zemeckis, or not Zemeckis, but
Reitman.
Yeah, Reitman. And he's kind of standing there a little too long, and I wanted to see the footage after the cut, because I almost felt like Reitman just looked at him and said, "Okay, you can go now,"
Yeah.
Type of thing. It just felt awkward at times to me, and I don't know if that's because it's me and it's not awkward to other people. Did you guys think certain points it was just like, ew, like that's a little too much?
Yeah, it was
as far
weird.
as their obsession with the film and
Right.
Well, I mean, obviously. Well, the interesting thing to me is that they had to pick out a handful of folks, and they probably did a little bit of what you said, the reality TV kind of thing, where they wanted to try to pick people who were going to be more interesting, more compelling, would be in one way or another maybe more fun to watch.
Right.
But one of the things I found interesting is that there's a Ghostbusters club or whatever they called them. I don't remember what they called them. In every state.
Right.
That there's at least one person who knows. I don't know the membership of these things, but so it's clear that there were a lot of available subjects for the documentary. So it does make you wonder, like, were these the most interesting people they could find, and why did they select these particular individuals?
Right. Were there others that they could have picked,
or were a lot of the others were like, oh yeah, I love Ghostbusters, and yeah, I've got a proton pack, and every once in a while I'll go down to the children's hospital and put it on, and make some kids happy. But I don't obsess over it. It's not my whole life. It didn't save me from drinking or whatever.
Right. And I don't want to diminish what they do. Like, I have fandom for other things. I'm talking next to shelves filled with statue of Indiana Jones, a Lego helicarrier, Jurassic Park statue. Everyone has their fandom and what they choose. And I'm glad you bring up the point about the charity. Like, it seemed like both groups do a lot for charity, especially the couple that drove their DeLorean to all 50 states to help out Michael J. Fox's charity. And then I know the Ghostheads or the chapters, they go to hospitals and gatherings just to make kids happy. And I have a few friends in the 501st Legion that do that with Stormtrooper armor and Vader armor and, dressed as Jedis. And they were even at my wedding when Amanda and I walked under them. They were holding their guns and their sabers up. Like, it's something they do, and they donate their time and they donate their money to help charities, which I think is great. They're using their fandom for good.
And maybe that would have been a more interesting take.
I think so too. I think at least for the Ghostheads documentary, I think it would have. It just seemed to me like the director or the producers or whoever either chose to shoot it like this or decided on the edit. They were like almost like it got to the point where they were almost like, hey, look at this, isn't it crazy? That someone can think, and it's, I don't know, to me it was almost taking advantage of them. And I don't know, that at least that's the way I felt about it.
You felt that they were kind of trying to play these guys for laughs?
Yes. Like that they weren't really taking them serious. They were.
Yeah, well, the joke's on them. They're the ones that spent, 10 months putting together a documentary about the fans of Ghostbusters? Yeah. I mean, who's more foolish, the fool or the guy that spends 12 months shooting him?
And I mean, it could have also been, well, this is all we have, so let's put it together type of thing, which we've all been there.
What?
So I don't know. There was a certain point where I'm like, okay, move on, where we all agree with that, okay, move on, go to the next person. And I think they could have shown more of the charity aspect of what they do instead of the total obsessed behavior that they have. But that's just me.
Right. And I think it's interesting to see some of that kind of obsessive behavior and how people become so caught up in that, but maybe not exclusively that.
Right. Like it's good to show that they're fans and, hey, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, but this is what I do with my time. And I go out, I visit hospitals, I go to parties, what have you.
See, and I feel like one of the biggest problems with both of these is there's no conflict in either one of these. That's conflicts true. That come up in Back in Time are little things like casting Eric Stoltz, and that's like the best part of the whole thing. But there is at no point is there any like, ooh, how's this going to end? I mean, God forbid this happens, it'd be horrible. But God forbid somebody like, a wife threatens to leave somebody and is like, you choose Ghostbusters or me, or right. I mean, some make something happen where there's some kind of emotional connection to what we're watching, because otherwise it's just like you said, it's just reality TV at that point where it's just like, hey, check out these guys. I'm like, I really don't care.
Right. Yeah, you got to that certain point where you're halfway through and you're like, okay, I know all I need to know. Let's move on.
And they keep going.
Yeah, and it just to me it wasn't working. Not to diminish what these people do. I want to keep saying that because, I think it's great what they do, and then we all have our little obsessions. So
I do too, and I'll make that real clear too. I'm not diminishing the people who dress up like Ghostbusters or restored DeLoreans. Right. I think that's great. That's your thing. I mean, people obsess for whatever they want over. I question the people that spun the cameras around and like, and let's talk about these people. And right. I'm like, leave people in their obsessions alone if you don't have a story to tell.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they should have done some phone interviews at the very beginning. We're like, guys, there's nothing here. There's nothing compelling to show you.
Right. Oh my God. We Yeah, the whole pre-interview over the phone, we've had to do that before because we live in Iowa. We have a lot of farmers, and there's nothing worse than showing up on the day to interview a farmer about whatever seed he's using, and you're like, "So, would you use Gabe and Tom's seed again?" Yep. Would you? How's the crop look? Pretty good. And that's what you get, and you're like, can you elaborate? So anymore, we have people do the pre-interviews and be like, okay, you're going to want to talk about this and bring this up, because farmers are farmers. They're just going to be like, yep, it was good. Yep, I'd probably use it again. Or no, I probably wouldn't use it again. They need to elaborate. And I think there was a little bit of a fail with Ghostheads on doing some of the interviews. And maybe they couldn't get the people that they wanted. Tom brought up a good point. Why didn't we see like Tom's? Is it Tom? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom's wife, talking about it. And some of we know that the girl that quit drinking and her now fiance or whatever, they were together doing it, but it'd be kind of interesting to see the talk with the kids of whoever's doing that or the significant other. So
yeah.
All right.
And maybe, obviously filmmakers didn't want to get that close. But I think that's the compelling story is what happens to us when our obsessions start overtaking our personal lives. That's the story you want to hear,
right.
Because we like watching train wrecks.
Exactly.
And this wasn't train wrecks. This was a train moving through Ames unobstructed. That's what. Oh, look, another train.
All right, let's go ahead and vote on this, Tom.
Oh shit! Don't go to me first. Go to Gabe first.
Oh, Gabe.
Oh, well, he has to make a decision or something. Again, the documentary genre kind of throws a little wrench in this. It's hard to say. It does come down to kind of selection of the subjects of the film and that kind of thing. I don't know. I guess I'm with Tom, and in that it seemed more enthusiastic in Back in Time than it did in Ghostheads. There were some interesting things with the obsessiveness in Ghostheads, but I think I have to go with Back in Time because it seemed more enthusiastic.
All right, and I'm going to vote the same for the same reasons. Tom.
And I think, in spite of everything I said, I'm gonna go with Ghostheads because I can't forgive Back in Time for not getting Eric Stoltz in there.
Right,
I'm sorry. You know what? That's my obsession. Eric Stoltz is my obsession.
There you go.
Oh my god, this is all he's going to talk about.
When Bob Gale says we have that footage and you'll see it one day, I actually fell off the couch. I was like, holy shit, they saved that footage. Oh my god, I can't wait until we see it.
Do you think we will see it someday?
Oh, absolutely.
Some sort of.
They showed some of it, didn't they?
They said little bits and pieces, but they've got half a movie.
Right.
Put it together and put it out. I want to see Eric Stoltz in it, and I want to see.
You.
And like it's not good. I'm like, good. Show us. Show me not good.
Yeah.
Show me what I'm not supposed to do.
I agree.
So, how long was it? Do you remember how long it was that he was actually filming before they decided to switch gears?
I thought it was 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is probably half the movie. At least.
They probably got pretty far in 6 weeks.
Yeah, because didn't he say he kept telling himself that he was just trying to put blinders on?
Yeah.
He's like, it's Zemeckis.
Zemeckis, yeah. And I've seen shots of him with, in the Twin Pines Mall parking lot with the headphones on, and there's one scenes with him at Doc Brown's house with the newspaper clipping. So it's more than just a couple of scenes. So
yeah, and it would be interesting to see like what made them feel like his performance was just not up to snuff.
Oh right, yeah,
yeah.
It would be, I can totally understand why Eric Stoltz wouldn't want that to come out as well.
Yeah.
I think he's done well in his own right. It's not like he's homeless and everything. He's doing fine. I think, it's an interesting piece of pop culture history, and
right?
I would really like to
just,
see it.
And maybe it's just that kind of piece, that kind of acting wasn't really his forte, and he's more suited to other types of roles.
What vision? I mean, how many movies could have been saved if somebody had the balls to pull the trigger like this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, tons of movies were like, oh my God, the casting choice was a horrible choice. Any movie Ben Affleck is in, And I'm saying that as Ben Affleck is one of my favorite directors. But the dude has got to get back behind the camera and just stop pointing the camera at himself, because I love The Town, and Argo, and I can't wait for his new one. But Ben Affleck, director, love him. Ben Affleck, the actor, meh.
That's awesome. The only one that comes to mind is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think someone needed to say, "Wait, hold on. Where's the script?
Why are we making this?
Yeah, where's the story?" So yeah. All right, let's move on to our third round, which is directing. We've already kind of discussed about the filmmakers and their choices, and I think you're right, Tom. I think they needed to get Eric Stoltz in there, and they needed to. Hell, they got Spielberg. Spielberg's sitting there talking, and
shit, they got Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Huey Lewis, Leah Thompson, Christopher Lloyd, and one thing I will give them credit for Back in Time is they reminded me how much I loved used cars, because they talked about used cars and I had totally forgotten about it, and it is now on my Amazon list to purchase because I love that movie. I don't know why, it's just great. So that gets a plus in their category. And then with Ghostheads, and we've already discussed it, some of the celebrities or some of the stars, I shouldn't say celebrities, the stars were like, what are we talking about? Ghostbusters? What's this for? Let me call my agent, type of thing. Or, boy, I'm going to talk to my agent after this. They're missing Bill Murray, which I think would have been great, which would probably be very difficult right now, considering, he really didn't want to come back. Did he? He came back for the reincarnation of Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
Because I knew I had read a while ago that there was some bad blood there, but because he didn't want to do a full third one with them, if I remember correctly. You got Aykroyd in there. You've got the Get there would have been what's his name? Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Rick Moranis.
Yes, that would have been a huge get, considering that he has retired from all acting.
Right.
And I think it would have been great to hear from him. I don't know why, and it could have just sucked. But I think the reason I wanted in there is because it wasn't.
See, and I agree. I would have loved to seen him, because that Me and 3 thing that everybody's doing on Facebook right now, all 3 of mine are Rick Moranis characters. So it's a Dark Helmet, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Ghostbusters. So
nice.
That's me.
It's awesome. Mine was Ron Swanson, Magnum PI, and one of the dads from South Park. Can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think we talked about all the directing stuff that I wanted to hit on in the acting category, which I probably shouldn't have brought up during that time. But it just seemed to me like they were trying to hammer home too much of why this means so much to the Ghostheads, instead of just saying, having a little segment for them and then showing the good that they're getting out of it, and then moving on to another set or some behind the scenes or something. They just tried dragging it out, like I'm trying to drag out my explanation right now. So
one thing I'll give both of these. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Mike, because you're boring me.
It's fine. That's totally fine.
one of the things, and we've done some documentaries before where the interview footage is really inconsistent, where they shot on like 6 different cameras and the audio sometimes is good and sometimes bad. I will say that both of these movies did a fairly decent job of getting quality interviews that looked well and consistent throughout. You know, Back in Time a little bit better than Ghostheads, and that's kind of a nitpicky thing, but that's certainly a direction thing that, I mean, it's hard to shoot in 20 different interviews and get them all to line up and be cohesive and frame them up right and everything else. So,
Right.
I mean, if I'm going to say anything nice about the directors, I'll say that. So,
Yeah, I mean, Ghostheads, I noticed little camera movement, more shaky, and Back in Time was more steady. You could tell they used a tripod more and even like a slider when they were doing interviews.
yeah.
Because one camera was locked down, the other one was moving.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because I was going to steal that. That's right.
Yeah. And it looked really good. And I think another thing that they could have done with Ghostheads is actually talk to other celebrities that Ghostbusters had an effect on that were not part of Ghostbusters. That kind of a little bit the way they did with Back in Time, where they're talking to the guy who does Rick and Morty.
Yeah,
And,
that was a nice ad, I thought.
Yeah, and what's the other one? The ABC show that takes place in the
Goldbergs or
80s.
whatever?
Yeah, the Goldbergs.
Yeah.
Like, how it affected them and it affects what they're doing now. I think that would have been pretty cool to see in Ghostheads. So that's all I got to say about it. Really.
Yeah, I think as far as directing when it comes to a documentary, a lot of it comes down to the editing, and the cinematography. Although sometimes I think, depending on what kind of documentary you're doing and how you need to get the footage, you may give some leeway to the cinematography, especially if it's kind of run and gun stuff. If you don't know exactly what you're going to get, you don't have a lot of control over the environment or the lighting and those kinds of things. If you're doing interviews and that kind of thing, obviously you have a lot more control, and it should be like what Tom mentioned. It should be more consistent and that kind of thing.
Right.
But I think also that the editing of it and how you put it together and how you take these real life events and turn them into a story. And what pieces you give to the viewer, to start with. And what you save for later. I think all those kinds of decisions are really important in documentary filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like Back in Time just did a much better job of that.
Right.
It seemed more cohesive. It seemed more linear. The production value seemed a little bit higher. Now, I haven't looked. I don't know what the budgets of these two films were. And it may be a budgetary thing, too.
I will find out.
So there's got to be some room for forgiveness there too. If it's a low budget thing and they can't have a nice, a really high end camera on a slider,
right?
Well, okay, you got to give them a little leeway there. Did they still capture something that was meaningful? But I just felt like it seemed better composed, both from a story standpoint and also from a cinematography standpoint. Back in Time did, and so I just felt like it was a more professional production. Mm-hmm. And I think you can give a lot of credit to the direction for those kinds of things.
Well, man, if you're going to sit down with Spielberg and Zemeckis, you're going to have your shit together,
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, God, would that be intimidating or what?
Oh, yeah, that would be very intimidating.
Yeah. But they both seem like down to earth guys, but
yeah, they do. But
they wouldn't criticize you too heavily.
No, it looks here like estimated budget for Back in Time was $190,000. Ghostheads does not give a budget, so you could probably say it was probably a little bit of a lower budget. Yeah. It doesn't make it bad. It just means that they were working with less, and they still were able to put together a documentary. Whether or not we agree with some of their choices is another thing. But yeah, And it looks like to me here that both directors have not really done too much of anything. Yeah. They haven't done really a lot. It looks like the director for Ghostheads did a fan film, Return of the Ghostbusters, as producer. So I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah. Well, I'll save this for overall.
Okay.
I was going to ask. Well, I'm just going to ask it so I don't forget. But have you guys seen any of these fan films where they kind of recreate the movies, like Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yes.
Okay, but we can talk about that in overall.
Yeah.
We can get through this section first.
All right. Do we want to add anything else to directing? Nope.
I'm good.
All right. I'm voting for Back in Time. Gabe.
Yeah, Back in Time for me too.
Tom.
Gotta get back in time. Sorry,
And by the way,
that's an old Saturday Night Live skit. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's pretty good.
yeah, yes, I did. But I wanted to point out, not until this documentary did I realize that was Huey Lewis as the teacher.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Blew me away. Like you with Eric Stoltz, I was like, what? That's what?
Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
Yeah, I never realized that. So,
And
to
he's
me,
up
that
there.
was great.
He's up there playing "Power of Love." I mean, that's the song he's playing.
Exactly.
And he shoots down his own song.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
Great.
like a little piece of enjoyment. Yeah. Wow.
And speaking of which, have you guys seen the Huey Lewis Weird Al Yankovic video that Funny or Die did?
No.
Oh my God, watch it. It's done in American Psycho-esque, where Huey Lewis gets revenge on Weird Al.
Yeah. Just that concept.
Yes. It's great. It's fantastic. All right. Let's move on to our last and final round, which is overall.
Overall, I'll probably never watch either of these again. I definitely won't watch Ghostheads. I might watch the first half of Back in Time. And the thing is, when they started the Back in Time, they stuck it. I think when it popped up on Netflix originally, I watched the trailer, and I was really excited about it because the trailer kind of sold it as a comprehensive Back to the Future documentary, and it's that. But like we said, it kind of gets into the fan stuff, and it gets really kind of small and some tiny things and cool. Claudia Wales owns a shop down the street, and Donald Full of Love is making Back to the Future appearances. I mean, that's awesome for Goldie Wilson, but I just don't need to occupy space in my brain with that information. And it's in there now, and I can't get it out. I have some pipe cleaners. I'm going to try that.
Permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I would probably watch. This is my second time watching Back in Time. I had never watched Ghostheads before, so I watched Ghostheads first. And I don't know if it's because of my schedule and lack of sleep, but I got to the point where I was just bored. I'm like, come on, let's end already.
Yes.
And I think it has to do with the pacing.
yeah.
And not necessarily the pacing and some of the subject matter, not all of it, but some of it. And Back in Time, I watched directly after that because I had a block of time that I could watch both of them. And it actually kind of brought me back up and re-energized me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's good. This is good. So I don't know if it's the pacing. I don't know if it's the subject matter. I got nothing. I just
like when he sees the that new Ecto one for the new movie, and he's geeking out over it, or the one guy sees the original one at the con. I was just like, cool.
Yeah.
I couldn't get excited about it. I couldn't get excited. I could get a little bit more excited about the DeLorean stuff because that's pretty badass. But I like Ghostbusters, but not to that extent. So
right, I love both of these, both of the movies that are the subjects of these. Like, yeah, I would watch both of them, probably once a month. But yeah, I'm just not obsessed over it. I'm not. I have other things that I am obsessed over.
Right. Well, and I have my own obsessions too. You guys obviously know I love Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And Fight Club is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I'm not out there like starting my own little Fight Club. And
Or are you? Because you're not allowed to talk about it.
Maybe I'm not. Mm-hmm. Maybe I am. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm not. You never know. But we meet on Tuesday nights. Yeah. So, as far as overall with these, I just felt like there was just a kind of a jump in production value between Ghostbusters and Back in Time. Mm-hmm. And Back in Time just seemed like a more polished documentary, both from the subject matter and just the production value. And that's one I may watch again for little things. But I think what we've been, are the super obsessed fans of these films really an adequate subject matter for a documentary or not? Because it sounds like all of us would be more interested in just seeing more behind the scenes stuff on how they made these things. But how did they do this? How did they what I would even like to see some of like maybe some of the audition tapes, what did they what did they have to go through to select the actors in these iconic films?
But that's us, though. We're obsessed about films. We're talking about films on a podcast.
We're
right now.
We are obsessed more with the other side of the film process.
Yeah, we're the three of us are filmmakers, and we want to see how the big boys play, and it's
Whereas none of these people that I could tell that were the subjects of these documentaries, other than the actual filmmaker interviews. But, the fans, they were just fans of the films.
Right.
They were fans of the characters. They were fans of the stories. They were fans of the props and those kinds of things. They didn't care how it was made necessarily.
Right.
And one of the downsides, too, is that now when people are sitting around like, oh, we need to do a really good documentary about Back to the Future. Like, they just did one, Back in Time. And like, no. Like a really good documentary about the making of Back to the Future. Like, they already did one. And like these guys like messed it up for everybody else.
Yeah, they kind of took both of them.
We're never going to get a Back to the Future documentary now.
Right. They kind of took both possible routes that you could go and covered them.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jason Aaron, for ruining it. Now I call Spielberg and he's like, I already did that interview. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
You're in deep trouble, A.A. Ron. Actually, I spells it with one A. But so Gabe, you brought up fan films.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with
which
fan
is
films.
A little different than what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But not an unrelated obsession.
No, and it looks like to me that the director Brendan Mertens, which we already spoke of, it looks like he was a producer or something on a fan film for a Ghostbusters fan film. So this is how he could have gotten into this subject. Like, oh, maybe we should do a documentary about the fans, about the film. I'm good with fan films. I enjoy watching fan films. Even from the lowest budget to the, some of the larger budgets. Like right now, I guess there's a lawsuit going on with a Star Trek fan film that looks really good. Like it's got some high production values, and it's just fans making the film. And then I know before Lucas sold Lucasfilm, they would have fan films for Star Wars. They would have, like, once a year, they would have a festival. You could make your fan film and turn it in. And I, in fact, was in a fan film, a Star Wars fan film called West Side Jedi. And it was a cross between Star Wars and West Side Story. And it was the Jedi versus the Sith. So I'm okay with it. I think they're entertaining. People kind of think out of the box with that stuff. Some of them are bad, yes. Some of them are really good.
The Batman Darth Vader one is one of my favorites. I like that one.
Oh, that one's pretty damn good.
And there's a Portal one that I really like from the video game Portal 2. So I thought the guy that did that one got some kind of deal.
I think he did.
Is that the guy that did Godzilla?
I think you're right.
Checking.
All right. There's also a really good Batman versus Predator one. It's pretty old, and then there's a take on Cops, but it's called Troopers or Troops or something like that, and it's done, I want to say, the early 2000s. And you're following around stormtroopers on Tatooine, and one of the calls is a dispute between Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. And it's fantastic. It is hilarious.
I think I've seen parts of that. I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing, but
it's Mark Johnson, who was one of our judges on the show. He used to be some member of the magazine or something like that, and they would send these short films on a DVD. And so I think he still has it. I should get that from him and watch it, because it was actually really funny.
Dan Trachtenberg did 10 Cloverfield Lane after he did the Portal short.
There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I never saw that. Did you guys see that one?
10 Cloverfield?
Yeah.
No,
I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of always wanted to, because I liked Cloverfield, and for what it was, and anyway.
All right.
We won't get too far off track, but I was just wondering if you guys had seen any of those fan films, because it seems to be there seems to be more and more of those.
Yes.
I think people are getting more and more access to equipment to make these things.
Well, I mean, you carry around a camera everywhere you go. So, yeah.
I do?
Yeah.
You do.
What are you talking about?
On your phone.
Holy shit, my phone has a camera on it.
What?
Holy shit.
That's how the government watches you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's only shooting us. We can't shoot.
Yeah, you can't
else.
shoot anything else. It just looks at you all the time.
That's
shoot
creepy
anything
and
I can shoot
exciting
anything
all at the same time.
The things no, never mind. Where was I going with this? You guys have anything else to add?
Nope.
All right, let's
Done
vote.
talking about these movies.
All right, let's vote. Tom.
Back in time.
Gabe.
Yeah, back in time.
And I'm going to go with Back in Time as well. And then my pen stops working. Maybe it's a sign. All right. Let's see here. Let's move on to our recommendations for this month. And we will start with Gabe.
Well, I can't recall. I don't remember some of my most recent recommendations, but it's usually roughly this time of year that I make some recommendations on 48-hour films. Did I recommend any of them this year?
I don't think you did.
I think you made a general recommendation last month.
Yeah.
Maybe I did. I'm gonna take a little time to recommend a few specifically, not just because I thought these films were good, and I know some of these people, and some of them have been guests on our show, and I know some of them listen, and I'm going to mention some specifically, but there were a lot of great films this year, and if you're interested in short films, you should look up the 48-hour films from Des Moines in 2016. But specifically, I want to mention Almighty Hall. From Tiny Explosions. That's Patrick Boberg's team. And it was a great film. It's really entertaining. It's really well shot. And kudos to them. They did a great job. There was another one called Magic Pizza, which I thought was also well shot, well acted. It was really a lot of fun. That's from Two Creek Productions. Another one I really enjoyed, beautiful cinematography and great acting in this, and I believe they won an acting award for it. It's called Simply Love, and it's from Bad Medicine Films, and it's aptly titled too, because it's a very simple love story, but it's really well done and really engaging. Another fun one, kind of a sci-fi piece called Collide. from they called themselves Team First to enter this year. And if you've been doing the 48 in Des Moines at all, you realize that's a reference to another team called Team Last to Enter. But they did kind of a sci-fi piece that's also very kind of understated and simple, but very interesting. And of course, I have to give kudos to Team Nick Wilson's team for a film they did, which was also kind of understated time travel movie called Relative. And that's just to name a few of the great films that were in the 48 this year. And so I know I do this every year. I talk about them, and but you know, we've all done it. We all know how hard it is, and I just want to send out kudos to the people who participated and completed the films, because it's so hard.
Absolutely. It is difficult. All three of us have been there. Tom,
Yes. What?
your recommendation?
Oh, my recommendation. Sorry. Those were good recommendations, Gabe.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was waiting. Mike usually says that. I checked the last 66 shows. He's always like, "Thanks, Gabe. Good recommendation." Instead, he just went, "Tom." It threw me. Like,
Well,
I'll tell Gabe he did a good job. You jerk.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's great. I've watched all those films, and they're great. And I don't know. I've kind of stepped out of the 48 now. So Gabe is the mouthpiece for the 48. So it's great. And I every time a new one pops up, I'll watch it. Like, they're slowly all getting put online now, which is what I enjoy.
That's great. Okay. Anyway, so my recommendation is Overnight, a documentary from 2003 about the behind-the-scenes making of Boondock Saints and the war between Harvey Weinstein and director Troy Duffy. And it is, I really like Boondock Saints. I know that it gets some flack. It doesn't have a very good critic score, but it's a fun movie that takes a lot of risks, and I really enjoy it. But the behind the scenes is even better because it is a movie about ego and control and Hollywood players. And I really don't like Troy Duffy or Harvey Weinstein as it is. So watching the two of them go at it's just like, hey, cool, just tear each other apart. This will be fun. Right. And then it kind of turns into this David versus Goliath situation where you're actually start cheering on Goliath because David's such a douche. So I would recommend Overnight, documentary, 2003. You can check it out. I don't know. Might be on Netflix. You've got fingers. Search for it. Google it. Whatever. I'm not going to look for you.
You're gonna piss off that one guy that doesn't.
Use your elbows.
Gabe, wasn't you and I that talked about this? About Overnight?
No.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
I could have swore it was you, because Tom and I were talking about it before the show, and you learn to hate both of them so much, and it's just you just want to watch them both end each other in some kind of cage match. It doesn't happen. Spoiler.
So this documentary had the drama that we were looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of conflict in it. In fact, I took Overnight and I threw the case away, and I took the Blu-ray and I stuck it in the Blu-ray case with Boondock Saints. I now consider Overnight to be like the ultimate supplementary special feature.
Nice. Yeah.
To my Boondock Saints set. So yeah.
Nice. All right. Since Gabe did the high-minded and correct choice in supporting local Des Moines filmmakers, I was afraid he was going to take my recommendation for this month. And this one is Raiders, the story of the greatest fan film ever made, which is on Netflix now. And it follows the story of a fan film that was made clear back right after Raiders of the Lost Ark was released. And it was three young friends working together to make a shot-for-shot remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It took them 7 years, and they never were able to finish the film because they were missing the sequence with the airplane, when the airplane fight and the explosions. So this documentary picks up them as adults trying to get the film finished and get those scenes shot and made. And there is drama because both one of them has a very high-paying job, maybe in the video game industry, and they all three of them had kind of lost track of each other, had gone through troubled times with each other, and then reconnected through this. So it's all there, and it's, you know, them versus elements, them versus money, them versus time, and it works, and it's great. And I want to see it. I want to see the completed film, and I would highly, highly recommend if you guys watch or like documentaries about film or fans of certain films or behind the scenes about films being made. This is a really good one. So yeah, check it out. Raiders, the story of the greatest fan film ever made. It's on Netflix right now. All right, you guys ready to find out who won?
No.
Okie dokie, here we go.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Back in Time!
Gotta get back in time.
Just waiting for it. All right, Gabe, where can people find you and maybe dress up as you?
That's creepy, but you can find me on Facebook. And you can also see some of our 48-hour films at onegenomeshort.com.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Tom, where can people find you and try and restore your car back to its original luster?
My 1983 Chevy Citation is long gone, man. But, I'm on Vimeo, Facebook. People can usually find me at the local children's hospital. I usually dress up like Professor Snape from the Harry Potter books, except I tell everybody that my name's Hans Gruber just to fuck with them. Really throws them off.
That's a 2-for-1 deal right there.
It is.
All right.
Is. I walk in and I go, ho, ho, ho. And they're like, it's Snape, but he's talking like Hans Gruber, but he's quoting Santa. Fuck.
Snape didn't carry a radio. It's my wand.
Sir, you're going to have to put that away. These kids are in intensive care.
Clay.
You'll be in intensive care if you don't feature those fuckers up.
Clay. Bill Clay. Amanda hates it. When we moved into the new house, there's an elementary school right across this field, and it's Clay Elementary. And every time we drive by, I go, Clay. Bill Clay. She hates it. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those little grams. You can search for me, or you can search for Southsider Studios. We have other podcasts. We have our films on YouTube. Check out the 48-Hour Film Project films from this year. They will be all over all over YouTube. You just have to search 2016 48-Hour Film Project Des Moines, and that usually helps them pop up. And we, as in the royal we, would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And for October, we welcome back the albino typhoon, Tosh Dillinger, and returning for this month only from his walkabout, Mr. Samuel Pace Twomey.
You got my petition.
As we discuss Halloween 3 versus The Stuff.
You didn't get my petition. Okay.
No.
Shit.
So for Tom, Gabe, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
So take me away. I don't mind. It's better promise me I'll be back in time. Gotta get back in time. Gotta get back in time. Get me back in time.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.